Let's look at an absolute value problem, and we're just going to do this simply via calculator. There's a way that we can do it mathematically, but for the sake of time, we're simply going to do this via the calculator. So the first thing I need to notice is that this is an absolute value function. So I have to know where my absolute value function is in the calculator. So I want a graph. The graph is going to help me to solve this problem. So to find my absolute value, I'm going to select Math, and then I'm going to tab over to Numbers, and my ABS is my absolute value. So my calculator puts nice straight lines. I'm going to put 2 instead of z. I'm going to put x minus 3, and then this is an equality. So let's keep that in mind. This here is an equality. And whenever I have an equality, I'm going to put the left side in y1 and the right side in y2. So down here I'm going to write 4x minus 1. Okay. So then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to graph this. So I have to remember, let's write this down here as a little note to self, with an equality that this side here is going to be put in a y1, and then this side here, I'll put this in y2. So I want to see where they're equal, and where they're equal is the intersection. So where y1 equals y2, I'm going to look for the intersection. So even though we have this graph, I'm going to go ahead, we're just going to sketch it. So my absolute value gives me a graph that's in the shape of a V, and the right side simply gives me a line. So when looking here, it looks like it intersects only in one spot, right here. So I'm going to find that intersection right there. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to do second. So I'm going to push the second button. And I'm going to go to trace, second, and then trace. And then we can see I'm going to pick number 5, which is intersect. So number 5. Learn to read your calculator. Notice right here it says first curve. So it's on the first curve. Just get in the habit of moving close to the intersection. I'm going to push enter. Then it's asking me second curve. It's gone to my line now. So I'm going to push enter, and then I'm going to push enter again. So here I have the intersection for x. Notice I only have one variable that I'm concerned about, so I don't care about the y. I only care about the x. So I find that x is equal to 0.666, I don't know, number of 6's and then a 7. Okay, but that's not good enough. I want it as a fraction. So this is how I'm going to convert this number to a fraction. I'm going to go back to my regular screen. So I'm going to go second, quit. So I'm on my regular screen. Now I'm going to do point, and I'm just going to put a bunch of 6's across the screen. Don't put that 7 on the end, that's rounding up. And then I'm going to do math frac. Most of you know how to do math frac. And so I end up getting x is 2/3. Okay, in this case I would say z is 2/3. That's what makes this equation true. Let's look at another example. So remember, with equalities, I'm simply going to put 2 separate equations in. So let's go ahead and look at this example. This here is an inequality. So this is going to be a little different. And the other thing that I want to notice is I only have one variable. I only have my variable. In this case, I have just one variable, which is y. Okay? So that's important to keep that in mind. There is no y equals here, although I'm looking for the value of this variable. For the sake of my calculator, I'm going to make this into x. So in my calculator, I'm going to put this in a very special way. So let me clear what I have here from the previous problem. Let's put in the absolute values. Remember, that's math, number, absolute value. I'm going to put in 6x minus 2 plus 4. Now I want to put this inequality in. For the sake of the calculator, in the calculator I'm going to use this symbol. And the reason I use this symbol is because sometimes that helps me to find the endpoints if they're integers. So now I'm going to do second math. So here, what did I do? I did second math. And you can see that now I have my inequalities. I am going to not pick 5, I'm going to pick 6. And then I'm going to put in 22. Now I'm going to go ahead and graph that. And you can see that this graph's funny. This isn't giving me the V that I had before. So notice that this here is on my x-axis. That's where y is 0. And this here is hovering above. I always want what's hovering above. So when I graph this, think of this as, here is my values of x. And then what do I have? I have something, it's open circle, because I don't have an equal sign there. And because it's floating above, that's where my answer is. Okay? So for this problem, my value of y, or x, however you want to look at it, are these values here. So I have to figure out what this value is and what this value. If we look closely, it doesn't look like those are on that integer. So I'm going to have to find these values here. And this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to go back to y equals, and instead of having a graph on one nice line like this, I'm going to put this 22 down here. So I'm going to make the second y2 22. I'm going to go up here, get rid of that inequality, get rid of the 22. So now this looks just like my problem that's at equals. So when I graph it, okay, well, I'm only seeing one function. I need to see two functions because I put two functions in my calculator. So look at y. Y is way up there at 22. There's two ways that I can change my window to see that. I'm just going to do an easy way for right now. So I'm going to go to zoom, and I'm going to zoom out number 3. And it doesn't look like it did it. I wanted to graph it first, so let it graph, and then I'm going to do that again. I'm waiting for this to stop spinning. There it goes. So now I'm going to go zoom number 3, which is zoom out. I'm going to move this cursor up here because that's where I think my line is, where y is 22. You can see I zoomed out because my railroad tracks got tighter. So now, just like in the equality, I'm going to look for this intersection and this intersection. So I'm going to do second, trace, intersect, number 5, just like we did on the previous one. I'm going to move that cursor over to the intersection I'm interested in. I'm going to push enter. It went to my second curve. It's over where I want it. I'm going to push enter, and then ask me to guess. I'm going to push enter again. So for right now, I'm just going to write this as a decimal, but I have to change that to a fraction. So now let's find the other side over there. So I'm going to do second trace. I have to do it a second time. 5. So that's over there. I don't want that over there. I want to find this intersection on this side. So I'm going to do enter, enter, enter. And here, that value is positive 3.333 repeating. Okay? I'm only taking the x value because I'm only looking for one variable. So now I'm going to make these become fractions. So I'm going to do second quit. And just like here, I'm going to do -2 point, and I'm going to repeat that 6 across. And I'm going to do math frac. And I get -8/3. And this one here, I'm going to put 3 point like that. And I'm going to do math frac. And I get 10/3. So remember that my solution are all values in between, right here in the middle. That's where my solution is, in between. So that means this y, which just happens to be the variable, could have been x, could have been z, is in the middle. So how do I put my inequality signs? Well, I know that negative is smaller than a positive number. So that's how I write my answer for the inequality. Let's try one more. So let's try this one. So the first thing I want to notice is that this here again is an inequality, and I only have one variable, and my one variable is x. Okay, so let's go ahead and put this in the calculator on one line. So we're going to fool our calculator again. We're going to go to y equals. Let's clear out all of this. In y1, I'm going to put this in 3. Then I'm going to go math, number, absolute value, 2x minus 1. Then I have to put in this inequality. I'm going to go outside the absolute value. I'm going to do second math, and I'm going to pick number 4, and then I'm going to put in 21. So I'm going to graph that, and you can see it's kind of hard for me to see. So let me go ahead, and I'm going to do zoom standard again, and let's look at this. So what we have to remember is my solution is what's hovering above. So let me just show you this on the table, because I didn't show you the table on the other side. Oops. Make sure I have my table right. It's doing something else with it, so it wasn't ready. So here, wherever y is 0 means no, and wherever y is 1 means yes. But we have to be very careful about these endpoints, because it could be a fraction and it wouldn't show it to us on our table. So let's look back at the graph. So remember, 0, that's where y is 0. That's a no. That's where y is 1. That's a yes. So if I were going to graph this on my x-axis, I have something that is going like this and something that's going like that. Okay, so that's my solution. It's going out. So I have to figure out what this value is and what this value is. It could very well be -3 and 4, but let's go ahead and just double check. So again, I'm going to go to y equals. I'm going to get rid of this and put that 21 down here. I'm going to graph it. So again, we're not going to see that 21 because it's way up here somewhere. So let's go ahead. We're going to be lazy about it. Let's do zoom out. Number 3. Move my cursor up to where I want it to more or less center. Push enter. and let's check those values. So again, what am I going to do? I'm going to do second trace intersect, which is number 5. I want to move my cursor over to the side that I'm interested in. I'm interested in over there. So I'm going to push enter, went to my second curve. It's where I want it. Enter, enter, and look at that. That happens to be -3. Nice. So let's try this one. I'm going to do second trace. I'm going to do intersect. And then I'm going to move over to the other one. That's close, enter, that's close, enter, enter, and I get 4. Okay, so be careful with this one because my solution is now out here and out here. So what is way over here? We have infinity way over here. And what is way over here? We have negative infinity over there. Okay, so my x is in this part, right? So let's think about this. If x is to the left of -3, then that means these numbers are smaller. So x is smaller than -3. If x is to the right of 4, that means x is bigger than 4. So x is bigger than 4. Because I have this space in between, I'm going to write the word or. So that's my solution.